Michael J. Saylor thinks that crypto assets are long-term assets. He believes that you invest in them only if you are going to hold them for at least a decade. He believes that Ethereum is going to be one of the most valuable assets in the future. Michael said that a much wiser course of action would be to borrow money against Bitcoin. If you have an appreciating asset, never sell it, finance it. And the asset's appreciating at 20% a year. And if the interest rate is 5%, then it's pretty obvious what you ought to do is keep the asset. Pay 5% interest because the tax bill on money that's borrowed is zero now. As per Michael, it doesn't make any sense to pay for anything in Bitcoin for two reasons. The first reason is because it's a taxable event and you are a fool to accelerate taxes on your own person by a decade. The second reason it doesn't make sense is because it's a long duration asset that's deflationary, which means it's likely to go up in value. It's been going up 150 to 200% a year every year for a decade. So why would you pay $1 million in Bitcoin to buy something which is going to depreciate in value when the $1 million in Bitcoin may very well double 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more times? Bitcoin is the dominant crypto asset. Ethereum is the dominant crypto application. You can divide the entire universe into some segments, and Ethereum is competing with Binance Smart Chain and Solana. That's very competitive. They are very complicated, that's very centralized, much more centralized than Bitcoin. They have to be centralized because they need to run on proof of stake networks because they need the speed. So proof of stake itself is orders of magnitude more centralized than proof of work because you don't have these sprawling networks of miners with their ASICs everywhere on earth, sucking up energy to keep any one person from getting control of the network. So Bitcoin is like the dominant winner of sound money. These other things, they are just very risky. They could crash. One could win, one could lose. Ethereum doesn't even run off proof of stake yet. So basically you don't know when they turn on proof of stake. The entire thing is not going to go in some bizarre way. What will happen, you don't know. If you are a crypto investor and you run a venture capital fund and you want to make investment with high risk, high reward and you want to study it and you want to take the risk, then you can trade in those things, but they are 100 times less lucrative over time and they are 100 times more risky. So it seems like it's a 10,000 to 1 difference. It's probably good for the industry because it markets the industry. They are venture capitalists, they have to do it. This is one risk range. This is a different risk range. If you are super smart and if you guess will it be buying a smart coin or Ethereum or maybe it's both, maybe you trade. But when you get into that, you get this question of when are you going to take money off the top? When are you going to diversify? Are you going to be in it forever? Michael suggests that you should prefer to invest in things you can hold for a decade, if not 100 years. But there are plenty of people whose job is they're venture capitalist, and the venture capitalists are better on things where they think there's a 90% probability it will fail. But they think that they'll get 100 times return if it hits. So it's a different thing. It depends on your portfolio of money. Like what are you investing? Someone else's money, your own money, or your VC? Are you a private equity investor? Are you a saver who converts their money into a strong currency? An investor manages a portfolio of risk. Apple's, Facebook, Google, they have all got risk. A trader manages a portfolio of risk derivatives. Apple is going to beat on the next quarterly release. It's not even a portfolio of risk over a decade. It's a portfolio of risk over 90 days, or it's the second derivative of risk. Shorting Apple options against Google options because the spread is coming in and it's something you can do. It's just a different thing, right? Knock yourself out if you are bored, if it's your profession. And another analogy is like a decade ago. If you bought Apple and Amazon and just held them, you probably would have made a lot of money. You would have made 10 to 20% extra money. Now if you could go back 20 years or 10 years, would you give people advice about when to buy and sell Apple in the year 2012? Or how to trade Apple options against Amazon? Should you buy or sell Amazon in your 2014? Can you remember off the top of your head whether you should have bought or sold Amazon in 2015 so you could buy it back cheaper in 2016? By the way, Jeff Bezos was at war with Donald Trump before the election. So what's the worst thing that could happen to Amazon? You would think that it would be Donald Trump getting elected. But if you had actually sold Amazon, once you know that Donald Trump was getting elected, it would have been the most catastrophic decision in your life, because Amazon stock doubled in the first 12 months after Donald Trump was elected. Don't trade it on the margin, where if you get a 20% drawdown, you get liquidated. But mortgage your house, mortgage your car, mortgage your company, buy Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google and wait. If you can't raise debt, then take all your money in your piggy bank and buy and wait. And all this, and by the way, if you basically just bought them and turned off the television and didn't read a newspaper for a decade, you would be better off like there's nothing you can buy that's better. So you are selling the winner to buy the loser. If you owned a company in Venezuela and the company sold anything and you got paid in Bolivares and you decided that and you knew that the Bolivar is going to keep falling like 20 to 30% a year and you roll the clock back 20 years. If you were unwise, you just keep working and eventually your assets go to zero. And if you were smart, you would convert your cash flows into US dollars and put them in a bank in New York City. Now when would you exit from the dollars in New York City and trade back into the bolivars in Venezuela? You are not ever. Because the point is, one of the assets is stronger than the other asset. If Bitcoin is capped at 21 million for the next 1000 years, it's only going to get more valuable. You can make more apartments in New York City, you can print more US dollars, you can create more houses on the beach, you can create more artwork. At the end, Michael suggests to us that just have something which is scarcer than pure monetary energy on the dominant global digital monetary network. Now guys, I would like to know your thoughts about Ethereum. What do you think about Ethereum's future? And if you want more such amazing videos, then please like this video, share it with your crypto friends. I'll catch you in my next amazing video. Till then, enjoy your day.